My name is Michael. I am just an office worker, turning 30 this year. I work as a salesperson at a major company on weekdays, and I dedicate my weekend to my passion for cycling. That's my ordinary life. Today is Sunday, and it's a beautiful, warm day. There was no rain forecast, making it a perfect day to go out, so I hopped on my mint green bike and went cycling. Now, where should I go today? There's a restaurant I've been curious about. Maybe I'll head there. After exercising by cycling, I love eating a refreshing meal. The meal seems to taste several times better as it suits my heated body. I have a gathering with friends from my college days this evening, so I need to be back home by then. The restaurant is just beyond a small hill. I plan to cross the hill, eat, and then cross it again on my way back. By the time I return, it should be just the right time. It happened on my way back, after I had crossed the hill and eaten. While climbing a hill on my bike, I found a man crouching at the side of the road. He looked to be in his 50s, well-dressed. Nearby, his bike lay carelessly toppled over. Seeing him clutching his chest in pain, I realized something was seriously wrong, so I got off my bike and rushed to help him. "Are you okay? Hang in there." Suddenly, my chest started hurting. "I'll call an ambulance right away. Please don't move." Having no medical knowledge, I didn't know the right way to handle this situation. But I knew I had to do something, so I immediately called for an ambulance. Soon, the ambulance arrived, and thanks to the paramedics' swift action, the man's condition seemed to stabilize. Still, just to be safe, he was taken to the hospital. "Thank you so much. You saved my life," he said. "No, don't mention it. I just did what anyone would have done," I replied. He was calm enough to talk by then. I was truly relieved. Who knows what might have happened if I hadn't been there? As I was dealing with all this, I realized that the time for my meeting was quickly approaching. Despite the delay, I needed to start heading back or I'd miss my plan. Leaving the rest to the paramedics, I mounted my bike, but the man called out to me. "Wait, please, let me offer you something in return." "No, it's okay, I must be going now," I replied. Saying that, I left the scene without even giving my name. After all, I had only done what any person should do. I didn't need a reward. The man, too, was riding a sports bike, so he seemed to like cycling as well. I'm sure we'll meet again on the road someday. I hope to see him healthy and cycling again. It feels good to do a good deed. Helping others always brings joy. With that warm feeling, I pedaled home. The enjoyable Sunday quickly ended, and Monday arrived. A new week began. During the weekends, I enjoy refreshing cycling, but on weekdays, I transform back into a diligent worker. My sales performance isn't poor. Actually, based on the numbers alone, it's quite good. Yet, my inability to climb the career ladder has been my recent worry. The reason I can't get promoted is quite obvious. It's because of our department's manager, David. David is a stereotypical autocratic boss, rarely seen in recent years. He favors employees who flatter him over those with good sales performance. I don't like David's approach at all. I want to advance based solely on my sales performance, not by flattering David, but he won't allow it. David seems vaguely aware that I'm dissatisfied with his methods and deliberately doesn't assign me significant tasks. He probably doesn't like that I don't flatter him. So, I've almost given up on getting promoted and just focus on achieving significant results with the tasks I'm given. If I exceed expectations, perhaps a manager from another sales department might notice me. That's the slim hope I'm clinging to. One day, as usual, I went to the office and was getting on with my work. "Hey, Emily, what's the deal with this document?" David's bellow echoed through the room. "Yes, I'm so sorry. The one being scolded was Emily, a clerical employee handling accounting and administrative tasks in our department. She apologized to David in a small voice. "What? I can hear you. I'm so sorry. I've told you to make eye contact when you speak, hadn't I? I'm sorry, I'm sorry." David deliberately made Emily apologize again, even though he could hear her. "Just make sure you correct it," David yelled and threw the stack of documents he was holding at Emily. The papers fluttered in the air and scattered on the floor. Without giving it a second look, David stormed out of the floor with large strides. Emily started picking up the scattered documents alone. Thinking that David had gone too far, I stood up from my desk and rushed over to help Emily. "Are you okay? Let me help you." Together, we started picking up the documents scattered on the floor. "Thank you," she said without making eye contact with me. Emily is a general employee in charge of our department's clerical work. She has a developmental disorder and finds it extremely difficult to make eye contact with people. Moreover, she apparently suffered a large burn on her face from a house fire when she was young. This injury, along with her condition, made it even harder for her to face people. Some people, like me, accept her disability as it is, while others, like David, do not tolerate it. In such a toxic work environment, one might think she should just quit, but this company was a place where Emily, with her developmental disorder, finally managed to find employment. Finding another job is not guaranteed, so quitting isn't a simple option for her. Even though she has a developmental disorder, Emily is competent at her job. She occasionally makes mistakes, but when she's focused, her work output is incredible compared to others. Even I have been helped by her many times. David must know that she is a capable worker. Yet, he discriminates against her because of her developmental disorder, subtly bullying her in hopes she'll quit. "If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know. I'll do what I can to assist," I offered. "Thank you, but if you pay attention to me, even you might get bullied by David," she cautioned. This was the reason why other employees, despite noticing her mistreatment, didn't help her. Defending Emily, who was targeted by David, could jeopardize their own career advancement. David already promotes employees who flatter him. If I were seen defending Emily, it could completely ruin my chances for promotion by upsetting David. "It's okay. I have no interest in sucking up to David for a promotion," I assured her. "Is that so?" Emily seemed relieved by my response. She still didn't meet my eyes, but her voice softened a bit, conveying her emotions. I was content just being able to communicate with her in this way. A few days later, another incident occurred. "Emily, what's this? The numbers are wrong." David's angry voice echoed from the early morning. Again, I sighed in frustration. "These numbers here. This is an important document. How are you going to fix this?" "I'm sorry, but these numbers were based on the instructions you sent via email. Are you defying me? That's some nerve you have." From what I overheard, it seemed Emily had prepared the document with numbers David had mistakenly instructed her to use, and it was sent to a client. Clearly, it was David's mistake, but he was blaming Emily and shouting at her. This was beyond unreasonable. I don't care if you have a developmental disorder or what, but you should be grateful for being employed. Don't defy me. Yes, I'm sorry. Besides, you're a woman. Why don't you dress more femininely? Put on some makeup to cover that ugly face. You look like a monster. David's words froze the air around us. This was too much. A woman's appearance has nothing to do with her work. Furious, I found myself in front of David, slamming my hands down on the desk loudly. Enough already. From what I've heard, the mistake in this document was due to your incorrect instructions, wasn't it? Moreover, a person's work has nothing to do with their appearance. Why do you find joy in saying things that hurt women? I couldn't stand David bullying Emily. heartlessly exploiting her vulnerabilities for his amusement. I wanted to make him realize he was doing something utterly despicable as a person. But my words didn't reach him. Instead, David turned his anger towards me. "Michael, who do you think you are, talking to me like that, defying me?" "I'm not defying you. I'm just stating what any decent person should," I retorted. David became furious, and sensing that things were going seriously awry, the other employees, who had been silent until now, started to buzz with activity. "Michael, stop it. This is bad. Don't push it too far. It's dangerous. Apologize already." Whispers of caution reached me, but I didn't back down. Once my anger boiled over, it wasn't easy to calm down. "Apologize to Emily," I demanded. David glared at me, clearly displeased with my attitude. "You've got some nerve. If you dislike working under me so much, go work under someone else. I don't need someone who defies me in this department. I never wanted to work under you in the first place. Go ahead, transfer me if you can." Our exchange had turned into a heated argument. In my anger, I had spoken to my superior in a way I shouldn't have, but I had no regrets. The argument ended when David banged the desk and stormed off. Emily looked at me worriedly, so I reassured her with a smile and went back to work. The next day, the official notice came. True to David's words, I was transferred out of the sales department to another division. I ended up in a subsidiary's document sorting department. It was a small department with just a few part-time older ladies. Of course, there was no other young employee like me. The transfer clearly steered me away from any path to promotion, an evident show of David's malice. It seemed they had no intention of letting me work in sales anymore. I decided to be thankful that at least I wasn't fired. While working modestly here, I thought maybe I should start looking for another job. Now that I've been removed from my sales position, there's no meaning for me to stay at this company. I felt defeated by that power-harassing manager, but there was nothing I could do. A few days after I started working like a robot, I noticed something different when I came to work. The part-time ladies seemed unusually restless. "What's going on?" I asked. "Today, the new president is coming to visit our department as part of his greeting rounds." "That's right. No one of his stature has ever come to visit us before, so everyone's quite excited." I remembered an email about an internal appointment of the new president. Indeed, I had only been vaguely aware of it. It was rare for someone important from the company to visit this often neglected department, and the ladies were eager to show off their diligent work. The atmosphere was different today. A president visiting us personally seemed like a very conscientious person. But for me, no matter how hard I worked, I knew I wouldn't return to sales. I couldn't bring myself to be as enthusiastic as the ladies, so I continued my work as usual. Then, the time came, and the new president arrived for his visit. "Excuse me, I'm the new president, Alexander." Everyone stopped their work and stood up, applauding to welcome President Alexander. The new President Alexander was a well-dressed man in his 50s. Despite his age, he had a fit physique and a graceful posture. He might be involved in some kind of sport. "If you have any trouble, please don't hesitate to contact me. I aim to create a workplace where everyone can work happily," he said. There was something familiar about President Alexander's face. Have I met him before? I couldn't immediately recall, but as I looked at him, trying to remember, our eyes suddenly met. "Ah, you're the guy from that time." President Alexander, recognizing me, approached with a sparkle in his eyes. "I've been wanting to thank you. I've been looking for you since you helped me on that hill. I never imagined we worked at the same company. It all came back to me then." He was the man I had helped while cycling. "No, I just did what anyone would do. I'm glad to see her well," I responded. "I really owe you one. If it weren't for you, I don't know what would have happened," I'm truly grateful," he expressed. President Alexander extended his hand for a handshake, and I reciprocated naturally. He was a person of good manners, treating even a subordinate like me with respect. So different from a certain power-harassing manager. I wish I could work under someone like him, I thought. "By the way, Michael, I have a question for you." "Yes, what is it?" "This department is generally not meant for young employees. It's supposed to be for part-time and short-time staff. So, why are you here? In this department full of part-time ladies, my presence as a young employee was clearly out of place." President Alexander seemed to have noticed it right away. I felt a bit reluctant, as if I were betraying David, but there was no use hiding it. I honestly explained to President Alexander the circumstances leading up to my transfer here. About the female employee, Emily. How David was bullying her, trying to make her quit. And how defending Emily led to my transfer to this department. I told him everything, sparing no details. President Alexander listened to my entire story, without interrupting. "I see, so that's what happened. I'm sorry, can I borrow your phone for a moment?" After listening to my story, President Alexander picked up the receiver from the internal phone on my desk and made a call. "It's me. Bring David here." Soon after, David appeared. "David, I heard you decided on Michael's transfer. This department isn't supposed to have full-time employees. Can I hear the reason for the transfer?" Confronted by President Alexander, David was sweating profusely. "Well, that is. I want to hear the reason for the transfer. Please explain." Unable to justify his self-centered reasoning to President Alexander, David just opened and closed his mouth like a fish, unable to say a word. His pathetic sight made the part-time ladies giggle. Impatient with David's silence, President Alexander let out a heavy sigh. "I've heard enough to guess the reasons. If what you're implying is true, it's a serious issue. I'll have an investigation conducted in your department. I'll also speak to your subordinates for fact verification." "Understood." "Yes." Following this, all of David's misdeeds came to light, and he received a demotion. Naturally, he couldn't stay in the same department. He was apparently transferred to a regional department. Of course, my unjust transfer was revoked. I was able to return to my original sales department. The sales department without David seemed livelier somehow. Michael. The first to approach me upon my return was Emily. "I'm sorry my situation caused your transfer." "No, it's not your fault, Emily. I chose to stand up to David, so don't worry about it." Emily thanked a lot to me. I never thought it was her fault. "And I heard about you from President Alexander." "From President Alexander?" "Yes. Thank you very much for everything." As she raised her head, our eyes met for the first time. Emily, who had difficulty making eye contact, was looking directly at me. "President Alexander spoke very highly of you. He said you're a sincere and righteous person. I also heard about your help during the cycling incident." That's just. I did what anyone would do." I felt a bit embarrassed being praised face to face, but I was happy she was looking me in the eye. "Actually, I also like cycling." "Is that so?" Turns out she enjoyed cycling too. Cycling, as it turns out, is appealing because the faster you pedal, the faster you go, allowing you to immerse yourself in the simple act of pedaling. It's a form of enjoyment that suits Emily's incredible concentration. When I mentioned this to President Alexander, he invited us to go cycling together. "Michael, would you like to join us for a ride on our next day off?" The idea of cycling together with President Alexander and Emily sounded enjoyable. There was no reason to decline. At work, with the dictatorial manager gone, I started receiving fair evaluations. As a result, my salary increased, and I even got a promotion. In my personal life, I made new cycling friends, making my weekend delightful. My ordinary life suddenly became vibrant and colorful. I was sometimes ridiculed for being too serious, but I'm glad I stayed true to what I believed was right. Thanks to that, I'm now enjoying both my work and personal life immensely, living a fulfilling life every day. My name is David. I divorced at the age of 25 and took it as an opportunity to enroll in medical school, fulfilling my long-held dream of becoming a doctor. After completing my residency and working at a university hospital for about 2 years, I started my own practice last year, marking a new beginning in my life. I used to lack confidence. Despite growing up in a warm family, I became accustomed to suppressing my own desires to avoid causing any trouble for my parents, often yielding to others' wishes. My ex-wife, Jessica, was one of those people. "David, let's go to Hawaii on our next day off." "But we just went to Mexico. I don't have enough money." "What? Not able to take your girlfriend to where she wants to go? What a loser." "Well, if you could chip in a little." "Why should I pay for anything? You're a man, aren't you?" Having worked straight after high school, I had a longer work history than Jessica, who was a college student at the time. Still, jobs available to high school graduates didn't pay much back then. It was enough for me to live on my own, but Jessica, somehow convinced that my longer work history equaled higher wages, expected me to pay for all our dates. She was extravagant with money, insisting on trips during long vacations. She never spent any of her own money, always cunningly relying on mine. Yet, lacking confidence and feeling it was a miracle to have a girlfriend despite my low salary and high school education, I couldn't bring myself to leave Jessica. Jessica, on her part, had no intention of working after graduating from college, often saying, "You'll make me a stay-at-home wife, right?" So, I was pressured into registering our marriage. The wedding ended up being a grand affair. I had suggested a ceremony that suited our means, but she wouldn't listen, and we ended up having a lavish wedding funded by both her parents and mine. I would never allow such a thing now, but back then, I convinced myself that if Jessica was happy, that was all that mattered. The real nightmare began once we were married and living together. Jessica had insisted on handling our household finances and was adamant about holding onto my paycheck. However, she was shocked when she first saw my pay stub. Ever since then, I've been constantly berated for having a low salary. In addition to that, she drank alcohol and smoked cigarettes. Furthermore, she claimed it was my fault she needed these stress relievers and began serving me only bread and pickles. She wouldn't cook and would eat delicious store-bought side dishes in front of me. I was constantly called a low earner and worthless man. During this time, I experienced a turning point. One morning, I found myself unable to get out of bed. Despite this, Jessica demanded I go to work, saying it was my responsibility as the low earner, and left for her day. I managed to get up and went to the hospital, not work. Ashamedly, I had to borrow money from my parents as I had none. The diagnosis was mild malnutrition and depression. I was advised to take a leave from work. I returned home, dreading Jessica's reaction. When I explained the situation and mentioned taking a leave of absence from work, Jessica became more hysterical than usual and hit me. "You're such a useless man. How can you be so worthless? Not earning enough money and now getting sick. I want a divorce." All right. Honestly, I was relieved at the prospect of divorce and watched Jessica leave. Finally free, I took a month off as prescribed, but recovered from depression in just 2 weeks, realizing it was Jessica, not work, that had caused it. During the remaining 2 weeks, I thought about my future with a clear mind, likely due to resuming cooking for myself. With Jessica gone and the ability to manage my own finances, I started cooking for myself again. Probably the reason for the improvement. As nutrition began circulating through my body again, I started to function better. Thinking about the future with a clear mind was enjoyable. That's when I made a decision. The decision was to pursue my childhood dream of attending medical school. Back then, I lacked the courage to chase that dream. Since I had no other aspirations besides becoming a doctor, I had declined going to university to avoid wasting money and started working, as per my parents' wishes. They were worried about me but respected my decision, always saying life can always be restarted. But after my marriage and divorce with Jessica, I learned firsthand the dangers of living a life centered around others and the importance of living by my own principles. For the first time, I seriously considered what kind of life I wanted to lead. I still wanted to become a doctor. Now, I felt I could do it. I had nothing to lose. From there, things moved quickly. I humbly asked my parents if I could move back home until I graduated from medical school. Thankfully, they also agreed to help with tuition, and combining this with the savings I had hidden from Jessica, I managed to make it work. The next step was to pass the medical school entrance exam, so I spent a year holed up in my room at home, studying intensely. Having not studied seriously since high school, I initially struggled with finding the right study methods. Upon discussing this with my family, they suggested enrolling in a cram school, so I started with a summer intensive course. The plan was to continue for a year if it proved effective. It turned out to be a great decision. I clicked with the teacher, making studying more efficient, and I was able to grasp the key points I needed. My mock exam scores improved dramatically over the summer, and I decided to continue with this teacher for the year. I paid for the cram school fees myself. As autumn came and the February entrance exams approached, I intensified my study efforts. I studied intensively at the cram school 3 times a week. For the remaining 4 days, I dedicated myself to self-study at home. I did nothing else but study. Aside from meals, bathroom breaks, and baths, I was always at my desk. Then, on the day of the entrance exam, I was so nervous I must have gone to the bathroom at least 5 times that morning. Seeing me like this, my parents looked worried, but I headed to the exam venue with anti-diarrhea medicine as my talisman. At the venue, I saw younger students nervously reading their textbooks. Seeing them, I felt a bit more relaxed. They knew only this world. I had already experienced working, marriage, and divorce. Why should I, with all my experience, be nervous? I reminded myself of this. I reviewed until the last minute using the final review list I got from the cram school. And then, the exam ended. Not to boast, but I felt I did better than expected. With 3 weeks until the results, I enjoyed a brief break. On the day of the results, it was finally the announcement day. Though I told myself it was okay if I didn't pass this first attempt, I still wanted to succeed. Perhaps I felt rushed because I was a bit older. I was too scared to look at the notice board with the numbers. Clutching the paper with my exam number, I stood frozen on the spot. I talked to myself desperately. Even if I failed here, I could study for another year. It wouldn't be my first time studying, so I should be able to level up from last year. It's not like it's decided I can become a doctor. It's just delayed. My life is mine to decide, right? Even if I fail here, I'll keep moving on, right? As I had this internal conversation, the moment came. I lifted my face towards the notice board. There it was. I had passed. Incredibly, I passed the medical school entrance exam on my first try. I couldn't believe it. Tears overflowed right there and then. After enduring a hellish marriage, I had worked tirelessly to change myself. I had firsthand experienced that effort pays off. But this was no time to cry. The real challenge in medical school was just beginning. I had only reached the starting point of my future as a doctor. Yet, I was overjoyed. By centering my life around my own decisions, I learned to take responsibility for my actions. Everything I decided was my own responsibility, which was nerve-wracking, but the joy was doubled when things turned out well. I hurried home to share the news with my parents. Upon hearing of my success, they too were moved to tears. My parents never once doubted me throughout my life. They must have been very worried. What were they thinking, watching their son give up on his dream just because he lacked confidence? Though late, I felt like I had finally done something to make them proud. Seeing their relieved faces, I resolved to work even harder and be a better son. There was about a month before school started. I was busy with enrollment paperwork and other tasks. Yet, I wasn't bothered at all. I was too excited. I continued living with my parents during my studies, so I didn't have to worry about rent. I'm truly grateful for this environment that allows me to focus solely on my studies. Originally, I planned to use my savings for part of the tuition, but my parents insisted that I keep it for living expenses. As I would be too busy to work, they decided to cover all my tuition fees. Medical school is expensive. When I asked if they were sure, they revealed they had been saving for my education since the day I muttered about wanting to become a doctor. Parents are incredible. Before classes started in earnest, there was an orientation at the university, which I attended. There, I met Emily, who is now my fiancée. By chance, Emily and I were the same age. She had graduated from a different university and worked for a while but couldn't give up her dream of becoming a doctor, so she quit her job to start medical school. Our circumstances were almost identical, except for the marriage and divorce. Emily and I, sharing similar circumstances, quickly hit it off. We exchanged contact information and kept in touch constantly until university started. My life felt completely different once I shifted to living by my own values. Those difficult years seemed meaningful now, as they led me to my current life. Emily suggested we work on a report together, so we met at a cafe near the university and collaborated, debating and discussing as we worked. We had similar goals and, being the same age, we enjoyed each other's company. Time passed, and Emily and I were in our third year of medical school. By then, we were spending nearly every day together. I officially asked her out, and we became a couple. Our top priority has always been our studies. Becoming doctors is our ultimate goal. We promised each other not to lose sight of these two objectives as we continue our journey. With Emily, I felt we could motivate each other, and our time together made us work twice as hard. Our dates mainly consist of studying in cafes and taking walks on the way home. Occasionally, we go to the movies. Both of us living at home, we spent about half a year like this, and Emily said she was happy. After 6 months, I introduced Emily to my parents. Having gone through the experience with Jessica, I was a bit nervous, but my parents were delighted and welcomed Emily warmly. From then on, Emily and I started spending days at my parents' house when we didn't feel like going out or just wanted to relax. Look at this, Dave. You bought that. I was actually thinking about getting it too. I can lend it to you after I'm done reading it, if you can wait. I can wait, so I'm buying it now. Let's exchange our thoughts after we've both finished reading it. In this way, Emily and I spent our time peacefully, never fighting. Always positive, Emily is an independent and straightforward woman. Yet she has this adorable side that makes me feel she's too good for me. I often think how great it would be to become fully qualified and marry Emily. Whenever I mention this, Emily always insists that she has no intention of being supported by me, and that it's fine even if I'm not fully established yet. What a strong woman she is. Well, our dream is to become fully fledged doctors, so there really isn't an option not to become one. Time passed, and graduation approached. Both Emily and I managed to graduate without any delays. It was a miracle I got into medical school on my first try, let alone graduating straight through. It's all because Emily and I worked hard together. By the time of our graduation, I had decided to propose to Emily. For our graduation celebration, we dined at a fancy restaurant we wouldn't usually go to and enjoyed the night view. I felt too embarrassed to propose in the restaurant, so I planned to do it during our usual walk. Although our usual walking path was nice, tonight's path with its beautiful night view made me feel quite romantic. We're finally graduating. Yeah, we really did our best. It's all thanks to you. I would have struggled a lot more if I were alone. We both supported each other, right? It's good that we'll both be in our hometown for our internships, even though they are different places. Yes, but honestly, I'm a bit anxious. About what? We've been together for 3 years, but if you count from the day we entered school, it's been 6 years. I'm a little sad to think about the days we won't be able to see each other now, but I bet we'll be too busy to worry about it, though. About that, I don't think I could find another partner who motivates me as much as you do, and you know, I used to lack confidence and felt anxious every day, but being with you, I've started to like myself. That's why I want us to be together forever. Of course, I know, I know we'll be fine, but to make us feel even more secure and as a mark of my commitment, Emily, will you marry me? Really, I'm so happy I'm crying. Of course I will. Emily accepted my proposal with tears and a radiant smile. From that day, Emily became my fiancée. We decided not to register our marriage during our internship period to focus on our training. Both my parents and Emily's were overjoyed and supported us wholeheartedly. We discussed living together during our internship, but decided it would be too challenging with the new job, so we continued living at our respective homes for a while. 2 years into our internships, after some ups and downs, Emily and I continued to motivate each other and made it through. As we both aimed to become pediatric specialists in the next 3 years, living together seemed more convenient. So about 2 years after getting engaged, we finally decided to move in together. We planned to register our marriage once we were ready to start our own practices after these 3 years. Neither of us was particularly focused on the formalities of marriage, as we were always together and focused on our life goals. However, since it would be Emily's first marriage, we promised her parents to officially register at the appropriate time. Both families were incredibly supportive as we planned everything and kept them informed. We squeezed in time to search for a place to live amid our busy schedules. I usually went along with Emily's opinions, as she had strong preferences for our home and I wasn't particularly interested. We visited several places, and Emily always looked happy. She talked endlessly about furniture arrangement and themes. Our incomes as interns weren't high, so we couldn't afford a luxurious home, but any place was fine as long as we were together. We settled on a 2-bed apartment. Choosing furniture was something we could do in our free time, but for things like applying for and setting up utilities, which are difficult to schedule around, our parents were a great help, especially when Emily and I couldn't find time together due to our busy schedules. I'm truly grateful for their assistance. After we successfully moved in, we held a celebration with both our families. If it weren't for everyone, we couldn't have made it this far. Thank you so much. Really, we're so lucky to have such supportive parents. Thank you. Cheers. We took the next day off, so we spent that night enjoying a long, happy dinner, talking and laughing together. I never imagined such happy days would come to me, especially during the time I was with Jessica. Nutritional deficiency in this day and age, I wonder why I ever accepted being treated that way. After our parents left, Dave, I don't really like talking about the past, but what's up? Remember, you can ask me anything. I have told Emily everything about Jessica. This includes all the reasons for our divorce. I didn't want to portray Jessica as a villain, so I made sure to explain that my own lack of confidence was also part of the issue. Moreover, I acknowledged that there might be times when being with someone who is divorced like me could cause her anxiety. I had told her to feel free to ask me anything during such times. It's not that I'm anxious, but I just want you to know that I'll never let you suffer from nutritional deficiency. What? It's just, thinking of how wonderful you are makes me sad that you were treated that way. Emily, you're really funny and kind. With you, I'll never go back to being who I was before. Besides, now I'm confident enough to at least feed myself properly. I know, but I might not be able to express it well, but I want to take good care of you, Dave. Thank you. I'm definitely going to make you happy. And so, our first night living together was sweet and affirming, cementing my belief that Emily is indeed my lifelong partner. It was the first time a woman had ever said she would take care of me. Emily constantly surprises me in the best ways. Emily taught me that it's okay for a man to rely on someone else. She also showed me that it's okay for a man to cry. Furthermore, Emily taught me the importance of valuing each other equally. Years later, Emily and I successfully obtained our pediatric specialist licenses. We were working at a university hospital while planning to start our own practice. Around that time, I heard from a local friend that Jessica had remarried. Since I'm not on social media, I had no idea what she'd been up to, but apparently, she married the owner of a construction company in our hometown. My friends, who had always sided with me, never shared any information about me with Jessica. However, since Jessica actively posted her life updates on social media, everyone knew what she was doing. It seemed she had been dating men who could financially support her since our divorce, but she seemed dedicated to her new husband. Well, for Jessica, it's probably dedication to his money. I glanced through her social media history, which my friend showed me. Jessica had transformed into a flashy woman with blonde hair and leopard print attire. The photos posted were all of meals at high-end restaurants. There were also pictures of brand-name clothes and bags she had purchased, as well as luxury accessories that she apparently received as gifts. The content was so excessive that just looking at it made me feel almost queasy, so I closed the phone halfway through and handed it back to my friend. Even when she was married to me, she used to post photos from trips we couldn't afford, just for show. I wonder how much of her current life is real. Honestly, I'm more worried about her new husband. I wonder if he's not being pushed too hard. If she married him just for his title of being a president, the treatment at home might be quite harsh. If he is indeed a company president, there might not be a financial hit, but I worry about the company's stability dealing with someone like Jessica, who doesn't understand limits. As I was thinking about this on my way home, I was greeted by the delicious smell of curry. "You're back. I've made curry. Such a nice smell. I'm so happy." What's with the sudden sentiment, Dave? Finding happiness in curry. You're such a wonderful person. I shared with Emily the encounter I had earlier, about how I'm grateful for finding happiness in everyday things, not in money, and how it's all thanks to her. I ended up sharing everything with her. That's nice. I don't have much material desire either. I find happiness in experiences in doing what I want. I can't really relate to your ex-wife, but I hope she's happy in her own way. What? Well, she got what she wanted, right? A wealthy husband. If that makes her happy, then that's good for her. I just hope she isn't mistreating her new husband. Yeah, Emily. Being able to wish happiness for your fiancé's ex-wife. How incredible are you? I'm almost moved to tears. It's just a lack of interest. I don't want her unhappy and coming back to affect you, Dave. I see. Emily is truly remarkable. Even making light of it, it's something not many people can say. If Emily had an ex-husband, I'd want to erase his existence. I can bear the thought of someone else knowing a side of her I don't. So, realizing her magnanimity, I was deeply moved. We decided to use our rare day off for a hot spring trip. Next month would be the final push for opening our practice, which meant we'd be extremely busy. So, before that, we wanted to relax. I had already submitted my resignation at the university hospital and was using up my paid leave. Emily planned to join the clinic after it was established, so she would continue at the university hospital for a while longer. Today and tomorrow, we decided to indulge and even bought first-class tickets for the train. And as we were finding our seats, "Wait a minute, David, aren't you David? Jessica, long time no see. You still look as poor as ever. This car isn't for poor people like you, pretending to be something you're not by sitting in first class. How embarrassing. Good thing I left you when I did. I'm now married to a company president and set for life. Hello." As I stood there, speechless, Emily popped her head out from behind me and greeted Jessica. "And you are?" "I'm Dave's fiancée, Emily. Getting engaged to such a poor man, you're going to have a hard time. I was smart enough to escape in our early days. Thanks to that, I married a president and am set for life. You must be jealous." "Indeed, how wonderful. What's with the attitude? You're just another poor couple, aren't you? Don't be jealous." "Jessica, that's enough. Emily, let's go to our seats." Emily smiled politely at Jessica and followed me. I was impressed by her composure. Honestly, my knees were shaking. It's not so much fear of the current Jessica, but a flashback to the trauma of the past. Emily, noticing my cold sweat, was concerned about me. She kindly went and bought me a drink. We weren't too far from Jessica and her husband's seats, but far enough not to hear their conversation, which was a relief. As we were talking about looking forward to the hot springs. "Is there a doctor on board? Anyone?" We heard cries for a doctor in the train. Turning around, we saw an elderly person collapsed behind Jessica's seat, face pale. Emily and I rushed over immediately. "We're both doctors. What happened?" He ordered a drink and was already shaking a bit. As soon as I handed it to him, he collapsed. "Here, Dave, use this." "I see, it could be hypoglycemia. Do you have any Coke or chocolate?" "Wait, what kind of joke is this? David being a doctor? That's impossible. If you perform medical acts without qualification, that's a crime. Stay away. Just be quiet." Startled by my shout, something she had never experienced from me, Jessica was clearly shaken and fell silent amidst the commotion in the train. Amidst the chaos, Emily and I swiftly attended to the patient. "Here's the Coke and chocolate." "Thank you. Dave, shall we try giving him some Coke first?" "Wait a second, are you okay? Can you hear me?" There was a faint response. Without intravenous glucose on the train, it was crucial to get him to ingest a sugar-rich drink or food to avoid danger. "He's responding. Okay, look for a glucose meter in his bag." "Got it." "Sir, we're going to measure your blood glucose level now, okay? It will sting a bit." The symptoms clearly indicated hypoglycemia, but we measured his blood glucose level to be sure. We pricked his finger and set the blood on the meter. As expected, his blood glucose level was dangerously low. "Confirmed hypoglycemia. Emily, can you help him drink the Coke? I'll arrange for an ambulance at the next station." "Understood." As Emily helped him sip the Coke through a straw, the man's color visibly returned. By the time we reached the next station, he was able to converse. We had him taken in an ambulance to the hospital for a thorough checkup. "David, are you really a doctor?" "Yeah, I am." "But when you were married to me, you were just a nobody." "Maybe I was." Jessica, faced with my calm response, turned pale. She probably thought she had missed a golden opportunity. In her mind, being a doctor equated to being wealthy. Her attitude towards me hadn't changed. She still saw me as worthless. When did you become a doctor? If I had known you had such intentions, I wouldn't have divorced you. I decided right after our divorce. I thought I had nothing to lose and decided to pursue my long-held dream. Thanks to that, I met Emily. I'm happy now. Why couldn't you have done that when we were married? If you were a doctor then, I could have had a better life. I don't live to make you comfortable. What? Isn't it obvious for a man to support a woman? What kind of adolescent fantasy are you spouting? And your fiancée? She must be after your money too. Actually, I'm a doctor too, so there's no need for me to rely on him financially. What? Then you don't need David. Break up with him. Why should we? I'm happy with her. Come back to me, David. You'll have someone to provide for. That's more motivating, right? Do you even know what you're saying? Hello, you do realize that I'm here too. You be quiet. They are doctors. They earn way more than you, right, David? Leave her and be with me instead, please. That's impossible. Incredibly, upon learning that I had become a doctor, Jessica suggested getting back together with me. And she did this right in front of her husband. Her husband was left speechless. Of course, it was shocking to encounter someone so blatantly disrespectful. Jessica, right. I won't be leaving Dave, even if he doesn't earn a penny. You're only saying that because David is a doctor now. If he were actually poor, you'd run away in an instant. That's not true. We met right after I entered university, after my divorce with you. I had no money then and was living at my parents' house. When we started dating, I was still a student with no guarantee of becoming a doctor. Yet, Emily found happiness in the small things of everyday life and chose to be with me. In my opinion, Dave was admirable, working hard and staying focused during tough times. I was attracted to his personality, not his potential future. What man doesn't equate to money? It's all about how much a man can provide to a woman, right? Love doesn't matter. I can't take this anymore. I'm leaving. Wait, Michael, where are you going? We haven't even reached our destination. I'm going to my parents' house today. I'll have my lawyer send you the divorce papers. Wait, what are you talking about? You wanted to get back with your ex-husband, right? I'd rather be with someone who sees me as a person. I've been patient, but I'm done. Goodbye. Michael, wait. How can you leave a woman alone like this? David, you saw that, right? He's worthless. I had to be with someone like that. Protect me. I understand him, though. Being treated as less than human is harder than you think. If a man keeps providing, I'll treat him properly. That mindset. You don't know the effort it takes to earn money. You probably just spend it without thinking. Even a president like him bears a heavy responsibility. Your lack of gratitude is appalling. And just so you know, Dave didn't become a doctor for money. That's impossible. No doctor would do that. Well, that doctor is right here. I'm content as long as I can live. Emily feels the same. Being happy together is what matters most. Something you'll probably never understand. Dave, our station. Goodbye, Jessica. I doubt we'll ever meet again. Wait, what am I supposed to do alone? Leaving Jessica yelling in the train. Emily and I got off at our station. Sorry for showing you that mess. Dave, you were so cool, and I take back what I said. Take back what? She won't be happy. Right. That was the end of the topic about Jessica. Emily and I changed the topic and returned to our usual selves, looking forward to our wonderful hot spring trip. On the way to the hotel, I was honestly overwhelmed with shock, unable to believe my past self. How did I ever get caught up with such a woman? It was clear, a woman who blatantly says men are only for money. Every time her image crossed my mind, I looked at Emily's smile and felt happy again. When we arrived at the hotel, we fully enjoyed the hot springs and delicious food. Afterward, I heard Jessica beg her husband not to divorce her. But of course, he said no. After divorcing me, she was still young and had men flocking around her, but as she approached her late 30s, No one wanted to be with someone who only cared about money. She refused to change her ways. Somehow, she got my number and started calling me, still asking for financial support. At first, I answered as I didn't recognize the number, but it was just her usual demands. She even suggested I give her an allowance without marrying her, which was utterly absurd. I immediately blocked her number. She had chased away all her friends with her behavior, leaving her completely isolated. Even her parents were outraged when they learned the whole story and cut ties with her completely. No one knows where she ended up after losing all her options. Meanwhile, Emily and I got married the following month. We had a small, intimate ceremony at a church, celebrated by our families. Emily looked so beautiful in her wedding dress, I cried, but that's just between us. For our honeymoon, we went to Massachusetts for a week to enjoy delicious seafood, as she preferred domestic travel. She's always been modest and warm-hearted. After returning, we started preparing for the opening of our clinic. While Emily was still working at the university hospital, I mostly handled the preparations for our clinic on my own, and it turned out to be more challenging than I had anticipated. However, with Emily's advice, we successfully opened a clinic. We made a great start aiming to become a community-oriented pediatric clinic. We had already arranged a partnership with the university hospital where Emily and I used to work, so we could refer patients we couldn't handle to them. Thanks to this, we quickly gained the community's trust, and in just 6 months, our clinic became the go-to place for pediatric care. Once the clinic was stable, Emily resigned from the university hospital to work with me. A clinic run by a pair of married doctors was quite rare, attracting attention and even getting featured in the local newspaper. Emily was exceptionally skilled in handling children, impressing even me, a fellow pediatrician. But Emily didn't want to stop there. Next, Emily plans to obtain a qualification as a child psychologist. Having more specialties than just 2 pediatricians in our small clinic seemed like a good idea, especially since the mental health of children can significantly impact their future. Emily has been interested in this field since her university days. After discussing it together, we decided on our next goal, to eventually expand our clinic to include both pediatric internal medicine and mental health services. Working towards this goal, we're committed to spending our days together, both seriously and joyfully.